Welcome to the 5th 2023 edition of VU Sports Wired, Vanderbilt Video Productions' premier sports talk show. My name is Bobby Kent, a Vanderbilt Hustler senior staff writer, and I am your host. I'm joined by Jonah Barbin, Hustler sports copy editor. On this week's show, we will discuss men's basketball's push towards the postseason, the Vandy boys' start to the season so far, and provide our thoughts on the end of the women's basketball season. We start with men's basketball, where Vanderbilt defeated Kentucky on Wednesday night at Rupp Arena. Yes, you heard that right, at Rupp. In a place Vandy has long dreaded, the Commodores finally upended the Wildcats at Rupp for the first time since, get this, 2007. The win was also the team's first against Kentucky since 2017. Vanderbilt is 7-1 in its last 8 contests and have reached 10 SEC wins in the regular season, also for the first time since 2017. Vanderbilt is now 17-13 and 10-7 in the SEC. So Jonah, let's talk about that win over Kentucky. With 3 seconds left, Wright drives and scores on the turnaround fadeaway where he almost tripped over himself. How impressive was that, and what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, what an amazing game, Bobby. To be able to go into Rupp and get that win against Kentucky with everything on the line says so much about what Stackhouse is building here, right? I'm really starting to buy in. After that LSU loss, right, a soul-crushing LSU loss, especially now considering the fact that Vanderbilt beat Kentucky, you'd almost be in the place where you're a favorite to make the tournament if you had won that game. But they didn't, and the tournament chances are still alive. But I really started buying into what Stackhouse was doing after the Florida game. Some of the things he said in that press conference just about how they bounced back, they're moving forward, decisive win against Florida at home, and then take it to Kentucky and get that victory right against Calipari and those guys. I mean, it was fantastic. Now, the downside, right, is Liam Robbins. To lose him for the season, it was impressive to be able to win without him. QMB played well. I like some of the things I saw from Malik Dia getting some minutes again. He played well against Kentucky when Vanderbilt hosted them about a month ago, but had some good contributions last night. Now what's scary is going forward, looking at March, you're going to need to win at least 3 more games to get in. And how are you going to do that without Liam Robbins when you're most likely going to have to play one of these really tough competitors, these Tennessees, these Kentuckys of the world? I don't know if I see the way forward. Maybe it's Jordan Wright.
Maybe it is. And speaking of Jordan Wright, I mean, he had 23 points on 4 of 4 from 3. I mean, that was a legacy game for him, essentially, right? And I really loved how, Stackhouse got emotional after the game talking about him, right? I mean, it was a heartfelt moment, right? He was like, this is my first recruit. He wasn't really a part of our last win as much. He didn't play the best game, but this one he was there, so I'm really proud, happy for him. And then they had a long hug in the locker room afterward. That's just, I think my mom told me she watched that video like 4 times because, that was just such a heartfelt moment. But yeah, I mean, he's going to have to be big. Tyron Lawrence, he had 21 points. That's not to be overlooked as well. He has really come alive as a scorer this year. So those two are really going to have to carry the load for the team. And also, QMB is going to have to be big as well. I mean, he was smart in the game against Kentucky. He obviously had that crazy 3 at the end of the first half, and then also he took a drive and got the and one and made the free throw. So we're going to need that kind of vintage QMB to keep moving. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, right?
Yeah, and let's not forget about the freshmen. I think Colin Smith and Paul Lewis, you can't really underestimate what these guys are bringing to the team. Getting more and more minutes as this season goes on, and I've been super impressed. Really good ball skills from Lewis. I could see Colin Smith as a huge scorer going forward. I mean, the energy of these guys, and Stackhouse was talking about this after the Florida game too. I mean, it just adds another dynamic to this team. So to complement all these veterans in Robbins, although they're not going to have him, in Jordan Wright, in some of these older guys, right? We have this young nucleus starting to form. And yeah, Tyron Lawrence, we've talked about the expectations for him a long time. Stackhouse has said he could play at the next level, and we see that more and more every week. I mean, the way he plays is really promising. So when you look at it, yes, it's crushing that Robbins went down, but you look at if Wright can come and step up and be that guy. He's that rare fourth-year senior, right? It's rare with all the money and transferring in the NBA that a guy stays 4 years. Jordan Wright has. Now's his time to shine, right? He was great in the NIT last year. Can he do that again? Magnon, can Studi step up? I mean, there are a lot of guys who could fill this void. The question is, can they, right? With not an easy task coming up of not only having to beat Mississippi State at home, but probably having to win 2 SEC tournament games at least to be considered for March Madness.
No, definitely. And it does take a little bit of a hit, too, to their potential. If they don't make March Madness a deep NIT run, I mean, with Robbins, you have to think this team could possibly win the NIT, right? But now without Robbins, they're going to have to figure that out. But, I mean, like you said, if there's one thing this team is, it's resilient. They fight, and they battle, and they punch back. And they showed that against Kentucky at Rupp on last night. The Vandy boys season is well underway now, having completed 9 games with a 6-3 record. The team went 2-1 over the college baseball showdown to start the year, had a stumble in the midweek against Central Arkansas right following, but rebounded nicely to take the series victory over the number 17 UCLA. The Commodores head to Minnesota this weekend, where they will partake in the Cambria College Classic, featuring off against 3 Big Ten foes, Nebraska, Maryland, and Minnesota. So, Jonah, we talked about players needing to fill gaps this season, with many key players having gone to the draft. So what have your impressions been of who stepped up and who stood out?
Yeah, Bobby. I mean, we said this is going to be a new-look team, right? Still, a lot of those pieces are there, but this is a new-look team in every sense of the word. So who's been stepping up? I mean, you got to love what you're seeing from Jonathan Vastine. He's been really strong, already taking a huge jump from what you've seen last year. A lot of the pitchers are starting to live up to expectations. I'm really excited about what Futrell brings to the table. I really think that he's been slept on. You know, we talk a lot about Holton, and Carter Holton's great, but give some respect to Devin Futrell and what he can bring to this team. And another guy I'm looking at is my guy, Alan Espinal, man. He's got a quick bat. Can really hammer it, and even so, he hit a bunch of home runs right to start the season, and even in a series where he wasn't as loud in UCLA, he had a line out that was over 100 miles an hour or something, right? That's like Giancarlo Stanton stuff. Stanton had a really loud line out. Like, no, Alan Espinal had a really loud line out. Yeah. So, I mean, there are guys that we didn't think we were going to be talking about Espinal this early in the season, and we already are. So I'm excited about the direction of this team.
Oh, definitely, me as well. I mean, I think you also have to give shout-outs to Matthew Polk. He's had over a 1 OPS in 6 games and 5 starts. He's hit 2 home runs. R.J. Austin, 11 hits. I mean, that's big for a young guy to be able to contribute like that and keep getting on base. You mentioned Devin Futrell's been huge. Carter Holton has obviously lived up to expectations so far. He was really big against UCLA, and he got really excited, which I thought was a really cool thing just to see that emotion. The rest of the team, guys are batting sub 250, which I think, tends to happen in the early seasons. You'll have some guys that are jumping out and going crazy like Vastine or Polk, but you'll have other guys that are, struggling to find their footing in the beginning of the year. And also the Vanderbilt's played a very tough, non-traditional schedule to start this year, so against a lot of ranked opponents. So I think those guys will rebound. But, you got to give it to what Bradfield Jr. did on the base pads. Broke the Vandy career record for stolen bases in Game 2 against UCLA with his 97th. He's up to 98 now. He's only, I think, 10 away from the NCAA all-time record or something. I think he could definitely do it.
Oh, he'll get it easily.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch that.
Yeah, from watching him, I'm always blown away, right? I like to call him, the hack or the run manufacturer.
Yeah.
Because, in no other context in college baseball does this happen. Yeah. But if Enrique Bradfield walks, gets hit by a pitch, gets to first base in any way, you see everybody tense up, everybody knows what's coming. First pitch, he'll be on second. Yeah. Second pitch, he'll be on third. And then who knows? Next pitch is a sac fly. Next pitch gets past the catcher. He's scored in 3 pitches. Mm-hmm. So putting Enrique Bradfield Jr. on first base is essentially putting Enrique Bradfield Jr. on third base. And teams understand that, and that's why teams hate to pitch to this guy. He is a matchup nightmare. You know he's stealing. Everybody knows he's stealing, even if they pitch out.
And he's faster.
He is so fun to watch. You got to be so thankful as part of the Vanderbilt community to be able to watch this guy right now.
Oh, 100%. And if you haven't seen him this year, which I don't know how you haven't, get to the Hawk and watch him because he's an incredible talent. In terms of just speaking as a team as a whole, though, what are this team's sort of biggest strengths and weaknesses in your mind?
Yeah, I think the starting pitching, obviously, as we knew coming into the season, is going to be really strong, right? We talked about, the contributions of a lot of these guys, and I think that's only going to get better. And I think the young guys on this team, the young nucleus that's starting to form, just like I was talking about the basketball team, is really exciting. And, if you want to talk about weaknesses right now, I think more of the weaknesses come down to slow starts, right?
Yeah.
I do think, like, anybody in the bullpen who's got off to a bit of a slow start, or really, we're talking about Enrique Bradfield, who's amazing, but, doesn't have numbers that'll jump off the page right now. That's all early season stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, you watch it in all types of baseball. Baseball is such a war of attrition, right?
Yes.
At the beginning, things can go bad. It doesn't matter, right? Early in the season, still some games are cold outside, right? You're a little tense. You're feeling things out. I mean, it's so early. The way, this is one of the most complete iterations of the Vandy boys I've seen, in my, couple of years, like since watching, obviously I came after the national champion, but I think this team could really go places.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I would agree with you about the slow starts. There have been a few games where they've won, they've got by, but the hits have not been there. I think, UCLA on Sunday, the win was they had 2 runs on 4 hits. So, but they're also keeping opponents off the base paths too. So it's a little bit of a give and take of both, but you love to see some more guys get on and potentially have, more opportunities for runners in scoring position. I think that would be huge. But, and then obviously they struggled against Austin Peavy on Tuesday before an 8-run 7. So they have the capability to do that. We just need to see it more consistently, which I think they will eventually over the course of the season. So unfortunately, though, for women's basketball, the season was not as favorable as they wanted it to in the way that it came to an end, right? Yeah. They lose their first round of the SEC tournament game, 77-70 to Texas A&M. They fell behind in the third quarter and tried to mount a comeback with a 14-0 run in the fourth, but it wasn't meant to be. So, Jonah, you have some thoughts on how the team did this year and prospects going forward. Give me what's on your mind.
Sure. Well, a very disappointing way to end it. Definitely thought they could get a win in the SEC tournament playing Texas A&M. Definitely thought the Commodores were the better team on the court. But it didn't work out that way. And, that's life. That's basketball. Thus is the tournament nature. But I saw a lot of positive things this season. This season was going to be one with extreme adversity from the start. Right, you get big name transfers. You get
players get hurt,
huge injuries at the beginning of the season for this team. The fact that they hung around like they did through their non-conference schedule, and then obviously struggled in the SEC, but still had some real defining moments that we've talked about here on VU Sports Wired, says a lot about the direction of this team and the overwhelming. I think my theme of the day is talking about the young people on all these teams, but my overwhelming kind of takeaway is like, look at this team and the amount of underclassmen that are on this team.
Yeah.
There'll be a lot of returning players next year, and I'm really excited about that. And again, I don't think there's a bigger Shea Ralph fan out there than me. Every time I've interacted with her, everything I've seen about how she puts this group of young women together, it is fantastic. And like I said, the biggest vote of confidence in a college program is a vote of confidence in their coach, right? Mm-hmm. That's how college programs are built from top to bottom. And I think Shea Ralph has these women in the right direction. And I only see next year with hopefully less injuries, maybe even some higher recruits, that this team is going to start picking up games. And then, you look at a 3 to 4 year timeline, and maybe this team could really make an impact in what's by far the most challenging of women's basketball divisions. The SEC is stacked from head to toe, starting with South Carolina,
LSU.
Yeah. But look at any of their records.
Yeah. We did on our show a couple weeks ago. We did that, right? We went through all the records, and it was absurd.
It was like only Kentucky, Texas A&M, and Vanderbilt that didn't have a winning record in the SEC. So that shows you how crazy it is. And of course, it's joined by like South Carolina and LSU, who are at the top of the top. It's not going to be an easy build up, but the right people are in place.
Oh, definitely. I agree. we talked as well about, the hiring of Katie Lou Samuelson, right? Player development. That's huge, right? To have that person in place. She's done it. She's obviously playing in the WNBA right now. She's done it. Another person who's done it can show recruits, hey, I've done it. I can take you where you need to be. You want to be here. This is the right program. The facilities, the locker room is really nice too. They got the upgrade a couple years ago. So, Vanderbilt, as disappointing as this season was, I think there's definitely a lot of things to look forward to. That'll do it for this week's edition of VU Sports Wired. Thank you for watching. Next week, we'll bring you more Vandy Boys coverage and hopefully a few more Enrique steals to talk about, as well as some Vanderbilt men's basketball wins, fingers crossed, that will get us closer to March. So we'll see you then.